The UK's doomed! Yeah, we know. But is anyone gonna do anything about it? It doesn't seem like it, and you see, that makes the perfect breeding ground for some terrible things. And the longer this goes unaddressed, the more likely these outcomes are to be. I mean, globally, we're all kind of sliding that way, aren't we? But change is in the air. Can you feel it? Because I can. Traditional party lines are being blurred, old systems no longer seem to serve us, and as a critical mass of malcontents is reached, worldwide, country by country, things will start to boil over. But it doesn't necessarily have to be all bad. Times like these are those where ideas only idiots could think would be viable just a decade ago are now being seriously discussed. You likely see it in whichever countries you're from, sure, but I think what I've been seeing over the last month or so in the UK is a bit of a canary in the coal mine. And so with that in mind, I think it's time we take a bit of a ponder about what's happening across the pond there in the land of Poundland, where I took your mum last night, and what light that sheds on where we're all likely heading soon. Now, just to give you some context, I'm gonna run through some quick UK doomer facts because, my god, they've been having a rough go over for over a decade now. The UK GDP on purchasing power parity, using constant 2021 dollars, grew by 0.38% per year between 2007 and 2023. So just before the financial crisis and last year, the economy grew less than 0.5% per year. The US, meanwhile, over this period grew by 1.2% per year, and Poland 3.7% per year. Poland, by the way, it used to be a big stereotype in the UK that Polish people would be like the plumbers and stuff. The Polish people were impoverished immigrants that would come over from the dirty EU, and they would do all of the manual labor jobs that the British citizens were too good to be doing. And so they were looked down upon in the same way that Mexicans are viewed by Americans. And now Poland, at its current rate, is going to be on track to surpass the UK in GDP per capita in 2029. If you were to tell a Brit in 2010 that this would be the case, they'd laugh you out of the bar. Or pub, they call her. Like, genuinely, this is such a turning of the tables. It is such a profound embarrassment nationally to be saying this. And yeah, this is actually the case for the UK. Poland. Imagine Mexico passing the US in terms of wealth per citizen generated per year. Like, my god, this is insane. I can't really hammer on that enough, but just Jesus. And speaking of which, the pound took a pounding. My god, it's worth half of what it was in 2007. And honestly, when I was in the UK most recently, it was literally the week lockdown started. I was up in Scotland, and I couldn't help but notice that, like, you know, liquor, for example, a bottle of Jaeger, this thing here would cost quite literally the same as it does in Canada, except priced in pounds. By the way, to be clear, their wages there are like half of what they are nominally here. Like, it is bad. Like, they get paid nothing. And the whole idea was, well, at least the pound was pretty pricey compared to other currencies, but nowadays, no, it's not. And that pound being so pricey is what killed their manufacturing sector. They were the first country, really, well, them in Belgium, to industrialize. Also the first country to deindustrialize. Like, you think the American Rust Belt's bad, my god, take a look at Britain. Up north, oh my Jesus, they got nothing now. Outside of London, there is no economic activity. It's bad. Like, it's really bad. And speaking of bad, their housing stock, holy Jesus. Again, if you're not in anything new or outside of London and or, like, genuinely, this is like, I can't explain to you how poor their housing is. And look, I know they all make fun, all the Euros make fun of North Americans, like, oh, you live in paper housing, cardboard housing, and sure, our drywall's a bit crumbly. Kyle's like to punch holes through the wall after drinking a can of Monster. But I'll tell you what, the Euros with their goddamn bunker buildings, thinking they're gonna get bombed again or something, at least those things in ours aren't dank, musty, mildewy, wet, and yet cold. There's no insulation. I swear to Christ, it's so baffling. I don't know why they ever built houses like that. Like, genuinely, if you go there, it's depressing how poor their housing stock is. It's actually, again, a national embarrassment. One of many. What else we got here? Housing shit, already covered that. Oh yeah, by the way, despite all of their housing being literally piss poor, third-rate shit, the housing price has been up over 50% over the last 10 years. Also, rents have done the same. The housing stock is so poor. You want to know what else is poor? Their kids. The child poverty rate there is about 1 in 3. Although, actually, that's not actually that different from what it's been. It's just kind of always been 1 in 3. Like, you go back to the 90s, it was still 1 in 3. Like, again, just Baffling. Like I'm always shocked to see just how piss poor the UK is on every metric. Like it's actually embarrassing. 1 in 3 kids grow up in poverty there, and it's been that way for decades. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? The country's also currently exporting millionaires and importing low-wage workers. If you look at their immigration, it's like they took a page out of Canada's playbook. They're importing a ton of low-wage workers, but they're exporting all of their millionaires. The UK is only second to China for how many millionaires they lose each year. Like, I think it's 5 figures. It's nuts, especially when you got nothing else going on in that economy. You kind of need every tax dollar you can get. And the issue is when everyone gets paid next to nothing, you can't be importing a bunch of low-wage workers because your population is low-wage workers. Now you're just driving down wages further, and you don't export shit, so you're just impoverishing your own citizens for no gain. Genuinely, to what end? I mean, I guess they export services. It's awful, I guess is what I'm trying to say. What else we got here? Wages for those 18 to 22 are still 15% below what they were in 2007 in real terms. So if you are a young person in the UK, you are still getting paid less than young people were at the same age over a decade and a half ago. It's just, this is a travesty. It's almost going on 2 decades now. They're getting paid less in real terms. That's unheard of. And, if you're over 22 but under 30, you're still you just actually in the last year or two got back in real terms to where you were in 2008. Again, just Jesus. Overall, actually, if you want to look back historically, this is the worst period of wage stagnation in real terms since the 1820s. It's been 200 years since it was this bad. And the 1820s was no time to beat, let me tell you. People under 30 today will guaranteed pay more in taxes than they will ever hope to get back in terms of pensions and other benefits. And then meanwhile, the elderly over 65 in the UK today are guaranteed to die knowing that they will have gotten back vastly more in benefits and pensions than they will have ever remotely paid in taxes. Which, I mean, I don't know if that's unique to the UK. Again, we're all going through it, aren't we? But like the UK especially. And so if you're sitting there as a UK youngin', you're probably thinking, why am I living here? I gotta leave. Financially, they're gonna be fucked. And anyone young who's got half a brain is definitely leaving, and that's just further fucking them. Like, it's just this doom loop. The UK's in a doom loop. And 10% of people in the UK last month skipped meals because they had no money to afford it. Energy costs are also so high that people are not heating their homes. And remember, the housing stock's so piss poor there that apparently they're regularly just dying in their home of exposure, indoor exposure deaths. It's just baffling. This is what the UK's become. Great Britain, Jesus Christ, what is great about it? I don't know. King Charles, what are you doing? Let's see here. Weather sucks, food sucks, teeth suck, queen's dead, king sucks. What's ever been great about the UK, okay? I don't know. Great Britain, never knew anything great about her in my lifetime anyway. But that all being said, the winds of change are in the air. Over the last month or so, there's been a big discourse online led by one YouTuber exploding onto the scene, building up a movement over the last year, all based upon the back of all these facts I've said today. You see, all of this poverty and other doomer shit about the UK has really been breeding some inclement weather, so let's get into her now. Now, this whole thing kicked off about a month ago when there was an emergency debate on a podcast called Diary of a CEO, hosted by a guy, I forget his name, from the UK, one of those entrepreneur tech bro guys, and he had on one of the other entrepreneur tech bro guys named Daniel Priestley, one of his, I guess, and he was talking to one Gary Economics. And now I've been watching Gary for about a year or so now, and I'm not going to get lost into the weeds of which way I think one way or the other. Don't get hung up on all that shit. The point of this story today is not the actual viewpoint, but it's just to discuss what is going down, because it's coming to a country near you soon. And so this discussion was had on an emergency debate about the economy. Now, you see, Daniel was given the arguments you come to expect from a guy whose business is getting others into business, but Gary was arguing that the whole issue behind all this was wealth inequality. It was that we were kind of living in a trickle-up economic world where all of the gains and growth of the economy was going to those at the top, starving and depriving those at the bottom. And he was arguing for redistributive taxation to fix this. Daniel largely agreed with every single problem that Gary identified. Overall, was actually really amenable to what Gary was saying. You know, like housing is unaffordable. The average person will not be able to own a home. They're not going to live the lives their parents live, not close to even in the UK. Working wages don't afford a reasonable living anymore, and profit shifting shouldn't be allowed. Profit shifting stuff like license and royalty fees, the ways that you get that double Dutch sandwich, for example, where they extract all of the profit profits that would be taxed to the Netherlands or something. I forget if that's still the loophole of the day, where basically you can just say, oh, but it's a licensing fee, and so therefore you get to pay a special tiny tax instead of getting taxed on the true profit at the corporate rate you should. And so, Daniel's solution to all this that he kept harping on was mainly just everyone should become an entrepreneur. I'd like to imagine that Daniel one day goes to the hospital and his world vision came to be, and they're all there like, sorry, Daniel, all the doctors became businessmen. Would you like a Huel, though? The UK does have massive issues with massive energy costs. One of the core components of any thriving economy and one of the biggest determinants is the cost of energy. So if you have high energy costs, you will not have a good economy. And that's the big issue with the UK. But also they have stuff like business rates, which basically preclude the ability to have any sort of physical presence in the UK as a small business, because the amount of money you'd be spending to maintain that, it's actually absurd. Go look it up. Seriously, business rates in the UK make having any sort of business with a physical presence untenable. It's actually baffling. I don't know what the hell they're thinking there. But I gotta say though, it's ridiculous to see just how out of touch Daniel is, suggesting everyone become entrepreneurs and business owners. Really, okay, take it from me as a business owner, former thereof. Holy Jesus. You think it's bad with all the subscriptions you have every month? Businesses are like that times infinity. Businesses are up the ass with all these subscription services. And most of these subscription services are essentially dead weight loss on the economy. Did you know Visa and MasterCard, actually, you want to know every single transaction you do with a credit card, they just steal 2-3% off the top. I don't get why governments worldwide don't say, fuck Visa and MasterCard, let's just create our own internal payment transaction service, charge a tiny fee, internalize what profits there are. It makes no sense, because every single dollar that you waste on Visa and MasterCard fees gets exported abroad. It's I don't want to get all mercantilist about it, but this is just a genuine absurdity. Any country which doesn't get to tax Visa and MasterCard should be banning them, essentially. And just work out deals with other countries like, hey, you guys with all your private domestic payment transfer services, let's create deals so that we get the same network effects of Visa and MasterCard abroad when our citizens go. Because, genuinely, this is one of the biggest issues with business. Think of how much 2 or 3% off the top is. A lot of businesses, their margins are 2 to 3%. Not very good ones, don't get into those. But, there are businesses and industries where just the margin you get is, a few percentage points. And then when Visa and MasterCard come in and steal that, you can't have that business anymore. Death by 1,000 cuts. Visa and MasterCard is a big one, but there's 1,000 more like it. And all of these businesses, they are exporting your money abroad, and you are just fucked as a result. Genuinely, it's terrible for the economy. So if everyone does get into business like this, you'll quickly find that you will be death by 1,000 cutted through all these different fees and little things that add up. Genuinely, good luck. Now, as for Gary, what I wanted to hear more of from him was specifics on how he was actually going to go about taxing the wealthy. Because it's easy to talk a big game about how you're going to go taxing the rich and ending inequality, but the fact remains that just with how easy cash flows around the world and how many places there are to store your assets, it's really fucking hard to figure out a way to actually nail down the wealthy to a cross, so to speak, right? That's the big roadblock blocking any solution to wealth inequality. And so I've been watching Gary for a bit over a year on and off casually. Maybe he's got a video out there. Regardless, he should really make a video dedicated to his specific concrete plans and how he's going to go about accomplishing this, because that is the real crux of the issue. That's what matters here, right? Because London, look how anemic they are with their multi-millionaires. 5 figures worth of them fleeing in a year. I heard it didn't go well for France when they tried to do some sort of wealth tax. I remember in first year uni getting together with a few friends over some drinks one night, trying to figure out if there is any possible way we could conceive of making a system that would effectively tax the wealthy without them getting around it. The plan we came up with was focusing on services and not goods. Specifically focus on taxing the profits of them, yes. More specifically, focus on cash outflows from the economy. And I know, capital controls. It's not, okay? Profit shifting. Any sort of dollars leaving the country in that regard would be taxed as profit. And you put on all these systems, but then you give out the carrot too, not just the stick. You got all these incentives now saying, hey, look, you get to dodge all this shit as long as you reinvest domestically with these dollars. And so that was our plan, among other things. There was a massive death tax we were going to put on any amounts that people were leaving to only direct family members in excess of $5 million. If you were trying to leave money to non-direct family members, massive death tax. And then last thing was just something about making deals with asset safe havens and their financial institutions to split the loot on dead Dodgers 50-50, and then the government would go and It turns out a couple of college kids getting drunk one night, sitting around trying to come up with solutions to such seemingly insurmountable problems such as this didn't exactly come up with some long-term viable, workable solutions, now did we? Who would have thought? But anyway, sorry, I just really want to hear some concrete actual plans for how Gary wants to approach taxing the wealthy and stopping them from committing tax evasion, or tax planning. Now, tax evasion is illegal, but planning to evade taxes, no, that's not illegal. That's not tax evasion. It's called tax planning. It's 100% legal, totally above board, and there's multi-billion-dollar industries set up to help you do exactly that. Anyway, sorry, that's all you need to know about the actual incident itself. Now we get to go on to the reaction, the fallout, and what's coming to us all soon. Now, the Gary's economics debate has kicked off an absolute firestorm, both online and in the mainstream media. Now, Gary's economics has been exploding over the last year or so, as is, basically 10xing in subscribers on YouTube, which is his main platform. But really, I see this all as a sign of sentiment shifting, because let's be real here. People are struggling more and more every day, okay? And desperate times call for desperate measures. And they're going to cling to whatever hope they got. And so that's why I think Gary is taking all the UK talking heads by storm. But anyway, yeah, sure, you see Gary doing all the rounds on mainstream media platforms like the BBC, sure. But really what I want to highlight today is this new phenomenon I'm seeing. All the entrepreneur and tech types having to grapple with wealth inequality openly for the first time. And now look, all these entrepreneur influencers got huge followings of their own, many times larger than Gary's. But, to be fair as well, Gary's popularity is basically a direct attack on the ethos they all espouse, right? Because while before they could ignore, they're increasingly forced to now have to counter all the points Gary and his types are bringing up. Because this all doesn't just directly affect their wealth. No, I mean it does. But more specifically, it's a direct attack on the very businesses that they are in business of. Because their businesses, for the most part, are to get other people into business. And so Gary's whole view and framing of the world is a direct attack on that. So I see where they're coming from. But that being said, because this is a bit of a new issue for them all to be dealing with, they're not handling it very well so far. You know, for the most part, they're all either espousing vague, education is the answer, buy my masterclass type bullshit and platitudes, or they're doing the whole David route of going, oh, everyone should just become an entrepreneur, just get rich kind of bullshit advice, you know? But look, okay, say what you will about the entrepreneurs, at least they're trying to take this shit seriously, okay? That cannot be said for most of the mainstream and large platform conservatives out there. Now look, okay, there's many conservatives that are raising great points and providing their own solutions, which you love to see because that's what we need these days is solutions, right? But for all the ones who are in power right now, the mainstream conservatives, the current dominant cultural forces, right? Especially those who have large platforms and all the professional tweeters out there, all of those types are shit in the fucking bed, okay? Because for the most part, what I see is they're all trying this perennially doomed strategy of refusing the debate. And I just gotta say, do you not all fucking realize what the end result, if you continue to follow this doom strategy is? You're seeding the whole fucking issue. Now look, to some of you it might sound like I'm on Gary's side from everything I've been saying so far. Forgive me for not sucking y'all off and agreeing with the groupthink, okay? I'm just trying to describe the situation as it stands, and as it stands, none of these people are taking this shit seriously, okay? They're all shirking their responsibilities, and for most of them, it's literally their job, or at least they treat it as such. Fuck, most of them aren't even getting paid for this shit. They're like a 4chan Janny out here just doing it for free, okay? But it just kills me because this shit is serious and you can't just go home one day and decide, you know what? Ideas are settled now. No need to learn anything new, take in any sort of criticism, have any discussion, field any debate. No. I'm just going to declare myself the winner now and forever. And I'm resting on my laurels. Do you know what that fucking means? Do you even understand the foundations upon which you are perched? Because one thing you gotta get through your thick skull is that none of you got any real followings. I mean, look, okay, no idea has any real followers. You may today, but give her 5 or 10 years at this rate, you're fucking yourself. Because in 5 or 10 years, increasingly, every fan or follower you got, they may seem fervent today, but again, give her 5 or 10 years, you'll increasingly find that they're gonna become more and more fair weather. The more you shirk your responsibilities like this, the more inclement the weather's gonna get for you. Until one day, you find all it takes is a stiff breeze before they're blown over to some other guy, some other idea. Only 5 to 10 years from now was 5 to 10 years ago. okay? The establishment forces against guys like Gary have largely died since then, and you're looking a bit long in the tooth too, aren't you, bud? Go look at the comment section on that whole Gary economics debate there on Diary of a CEO. It's so skewed in Gary's favor, it's not even fucking funny. You can't see the debate now. If you see it now, you're seeing defeat. I don't know what else to tell you, bud. The fucking winds of change are a-blowing, and they're coming for you too. I feel like the dominant ideologies today have made everyone sick in the head and forget just how impermanent all of their positions are. Because a victory today is a defeat tomorrow. That's just how she goes. That's how the pendulum swings. But going back to this whole Gary's economics debate discourse, another big way people would sidestep this whole discussion is by latching on to how Gary conducted himself. They were saying he's getting too emotional, he was cutting off David, he was lacking decorum in general, and look, okay, I don't disagree, I do find he was doing that throughout, but let's be real here. What the fuck does any of that matter? Because if you boil down the actual discussion of what was going on, if you just took a text transcript of what was said, who won? Be honest with yourselves, who won? It's fucking obvious. You don't get to win on a technicality when the content was so clearly against you, bud. What you think this is, a high school debate? That's not how this shit works, okay? None of the rules matter here. All that truly matters is what was said, okay? You can't just sit back and say, oh, but he was getting emotional. He was cutting people off. Like, maybe, okay, definitely he was, alright? But what was he fucking saying while doing so, huh? You didn't seriously engage with any of that shit at all, and that is all that fucking matters. None of that formality, decorum bullshit matters, alright? You wanna talk about proper conduct, huh? In this society, in this day and age, in this economy, huh? The fuck is wrong with you? Have you not looked around lately? Half you got careers predicated upon this fact, for fuck's sakes. You want to sit back and seriously say that wasn't proper debate decorum? No shit. Who gives a fuck? We all decided society-wide half a fucking decade ago at this point that none of that shit matters. Keep up. Those some fair weather concerns, and she went away because people aren't doing well, okay? We care about action, not aesthetics, because people aren't in a good place. That's why you've been able to rise in the first place, for fuck's sake. Alright, look, okay, everyone's dissatisfied, sure, but you can't seriously expect to be able to turn around and say, oh, look, we're exactly dissatisfied enough. That's not how that shit works. And none of you got any answers, none of you doing anything to improve her, and so more and more every day you're gonna find society is quickly outrunning your specific level of dissatisfaction, and they're gonna want to keep expressing her more and more, and in more and more extreme ways, and at this rate, you're gonna find yourself quickly out of date, just like the people you replaced, huh? Out of date, out of time. And this cycle, she's gonna keep on spinning, getting quicker and quicker until someone, somewhere, somehow finds some sort of fucking solution to all this shit. Till something fucking changes. Jesus.
If someone is feeling incredibly that they're at the bottom of the pile and they're working as hard as they feel they can, given their circumstances, and they're not seeing any gains, and the economy's racing ahead, while, let's say even they're getting ahead, let's say that their income's growing 10%, but the economy's inflating at 20%.
Yeah.
They're going to feel like they're swimming against the waterfall.
I agree.
Right?
So why does Gary Stevenson go around saying you've got no hope, let's tax the rich? His message is wrong. I agree with you.
But it's going to resonate.
One thing I've noticed while watching a lot of the reactions to all this is that even amongst those who disagree with Gary, all the honest brokers among them still seem to agree on the core issues that he's been pushing into the zeitgeist. And the reason why is because deep down, we all know where we're heading, don't we? The UK is a canary in the coal mine after all, but worldwide we're on that long road to ruin. The UK is just leading the charge. And if you think of the world we're heading towards, it already kind of exists today, doesn't it? If you wanted to live in the UK at 20 years from now, given no course correction, you totally could today, but no one does. Why? Because sometimes we value some things more than money, things money can't buy. You could move to a highly unequal society like Venezuela, Angola, South Africa today, and yet no one does, because who wants to live in such a shithole? No one. Sure, you could be rich, but are you really free when you can't leave the house without a little bit of armed security? No matter how much money you got, no amount can buy the peace of mind provided by a society in which everyone's doing well enough, where there's still hope for the future, and we all have faith in our neighbors and institutions. These things are all eroding before our eyes. You gotta be blind not to see her, and we all understand deep down what goes with them. And that's no world to be raising a kid in. I just hope, however things shake out as they may, that we don't lose what made us great along the way.